welcome to this year's technical applicant webinar for the cohort for the 2014 cohort of the Next 36. My name is Jon French. I'm the Director of Marketing and Events, and I'm joined by three N36 entrepreneurs who have just pitched at Venture Day, as well as our Chief Venture Advisor, Christian Lassonde. And there'll be an opportunity for you to meet them very shortly. I want to start with a few housekeeping items. First of all, we will be accepting questions through Twitter during the webinar and even afterwards. So please use our handle, which is @Next36. And if you help us out by using hashtag N36apply, we'll be able to pull all of those questions. Anything that we don't get to during today's webinar, we will answer after the fact. So we promise to get to any questions that you have. We also ask that you please keep your microphones on mute for the sanity of everybody watching across the country. Thank you for that. And finally, we will be recording today's webinar and posting that shortly. So while we hope you can stay for the duration of the webinar, you will be able to go back and see the answers that are provided by today's experts after the fact. A couple of key dates to be aware of as well. October the 7th is the deadline for applications this year. Applications are submitted entirely online. And the other date to share with you is September the 13th and 14th, when we will be having our first ever hackathon hosted by Google in Toronto and Waterloo. The theme this year will be wearable computing, building software for hardware. And there will be more information on the devices being used released very shortly with regards to the hackathon. Applications have opened today, registrations for the hackathon. So space is limited, and we encourage all of you watching at home to sign up before those spaces are gone. At this point, I'd like to introduce the three entrepreneurs who have just completed the program, as well as Christian. So we'll start with Chris.
Hi, so my name is Chris. I was in electrical engineering at the University of Calgary, and I came into the program with basically very little entrepreneurship experience. So from my side, I was on the technical side. I had tasted entrepreneurship. I built a couple apps. My most successful app had 15,000 users. So I had a little bit of kind of customer support and that kind of idea, but I'd never gone through kind of the entrepreneurship cycle, gone through in the world of entrepreneurship. So this was a leap for me into this world, and I'm really glad I did it.
Hi, my name is Jeremy, and I'm from Computer Science of the University of Waterloo. And before I came into the program, most of my computer experience was either under someone or by myself. So the experience of working with other people who want to build startups was completely new to me. And it's taught me a lot about how to work with other people, as well as the more business side of a startup.
So my name is Lauren Long, and I just graduated from Queen's University in biomedical computing. So I came into the program actually with very little experience in mobile or web development, and I had to learn a lot of that from scratch when I first got in, so I'd love to answer questions about that later. And because my degree was very heavily focused on the medical applications of computing, so I worked abroad in Germany doing a research internship in medical physics and imaging for osteoporosis. And so my experience has been, I guess, quite different than a lot of people that came in as a technical applicant. But it's been a phenomenal experience so far. Again, like Chris, I took a leap as well. Never started a company before. I'm really glad I did, and couldn't have picked a better way to spend the last 9 months.
Hi, I'm Christian Lassonde, the Chief Venture Advisor at the Next 36. Probably best described as sort of the entrepreneur in residence or chief mentor. My background is in computer science and computer engineering, a dual degree from the University of Western Ontario, now called Western University. Back then, it was UWO. So I immediately out of university basically started my first startup, which the Next 36 had been around back then because I failed miserably. I thought, I'd started programming when I was 12 years old, and so I thought, knowing the program was probably sufficient in order to start a software company. Turns out it wasn't. So I then worked for Electronic Arts for a few years as a lead programmer on some massively multiplayer games. Then went to work at Lucas Arts and Lucasfilm. From there, worked at my first startup called Linden Lab, who make Second Life where I ran production. And then from there, I actually started my first business called Millions of Us, which is sort of one of the first social media agencies. I ran that from 2006 to 2010. Started actually a couple other businesses along the way, but found myself back in Toronto a couple of years ago and wanted to give back to Canadian entrepreneurship. Mostly because most of my class from Comp Eng at Western were in the Bay Area. We'd have bigger class reunions there than anywhere else in the world. So I really felt that we had to kickstart entrepreneurship here in Canada and make the jobs available here, not only obviously for the entrepreneurs, but for the tens of thousands of people that those companies that were going to be created would hire in turn. So I'm glad to be working with all the entrepreneurs this year and all the entrepreneurs to come, and that's a bit of my story.
Perfect, thank you. Yesterday was Venture Day, and here at Mars Discovery District, we had 13 Next 36 Ventures that pitched in front of an audience of hundreds, including a number of venture capitalists and angel investors. And we won't give you as much time as you had yesterday at Venture Day, but maybe in a 60-second elevator pitch, each of you would like to talk a little bit about the business that you've built as part of the Next 36. We'll start again with Christopher.
Sure. So I was on the team. I was on the Needle team. And what we're doing is matching creative talent with employers that want to hire them. So what we built is a search engine of sorts. So we go out, we crawl the internet for portfolios from creative professionals. We aggregate them in our search database, and then we deliver the results to the employers that come on our platform looking for creative talent.
So my venture was called Pirate Studios. We were a mobile gaming startup, and the first product we made was this zombie apocalypse simulator where it uses your phone's GPS and other real-life factors about you to create an experience that's augmented by virtual reality.
Great. So my startup is a little different. We provide both online and offline experiences to our customers. So we do storage by the box delivered to your doorsteps. For people living in condos, we bring them boxes that they fill up with things like seasonal clothing, tax document. We store it for $7 a month and allow them to have a virtual glimpse into their storage using our online portal. And through this, they can also share items with their friends within social networks, sell, and also donate. So it's really a solution for people's staff leveraging the powers of technology. And you can learn more about it at boxitnow.ca.
And Chris and Lauren are very modest. Both of their ventures were recipients of the Most Outstanding Venture Award at Venture Day yesterday, so congratulations again on that. One of the unique elements of the Next 36 that differentiates the program from others out there is that there's an incredible diversity in the young entrepreneurs that are in the program, whether that be geographical or by university or by program of study. And one of the questions that we hear quite often is, what is it like being a technical co-founder working with non-technical co-founders? And I know you've each had slightly different experiences. Maybe you want to talk about what that's like in team dynamics. We'll start with Lauren this time.
Great. So I was very fortunate to have another technical person on my team. So my co-founder, Michael Falk, even though he started commerce, actually taught himself how to code. So that was really great. We were able to work together in building up our application. And our team is also a little different in the sense that we sort of blend together our roles. So the three of us are all quite balanced in our skill sets. So all of us touch business, touch sales, and we work together quite well versus other startups that perhaps have more distinct roles, and that also works well for some people.
Yeah, working with non-technical co-founders is definitely different from working with other technical people. A lot of times they have misconceptions about what your role is, and you have misconceptions about what their role is. So the great thing about this program is, over these 9 months, as you explain to your non-technical co-founders like the challenges and the responsibilities, you kind of educate them so that they in the future know how to work with other technical co-founders. And it's a great experience because I've never worked with non-technical people, and you actually appreciate the stuff they go through and not just think about everything from the programming side, the developing side, the product side. You think about like market acquisition, customers, all the things you need to actually succeed at a startup.
Yeah, so they've talked a lot about kind of that people coming into it from a non-technical side have a lot of challenges with communicating in that. And I just wanted to point out that the non-technical people in the program tend to be extremely interested in the technical side. So we're building a venture, they're all technology focused. And I've seen tremendous interest and a lot of energy that a lot of people put into learning how to code, interested in like how the systems work. And so a lot of it has been kind of, half of it's been training and the other half has been understanding where they're coming from. So for me, coming into the program, I kind of probably naively assume that people understand a lot of technical things. And so one of the things has been to kind of like strip that down and realize where people are coming from, and approach it at a level that would be beneficial to the company, because they need to understand what we're doing in order for them to be successful in selling it and in designing the business aspect a lot, but also to develop something that we can do. So for me, one of the big improvements or big challenges, big observations I had is the program, in terms of your peers, tends to be that they're non-technical and I'm technical. And so one of the things has been to find people that you can bounce the technical sides off of, because the rest of the two co-founders I started with are not really technical. So I had to find other people in the program and outside of the program that would be able to provide me that kind of technical feedback that I could use to improve myself on a technical level.
If I can jump in here really briefly, I think one of the things you guys haven't, those are really great skills that you're learning, and it's going to come in really handy in the next couple of weeks as you go out to investors, because I'll tell you right now, the investors will also be interested in how your applications work and what the technical aspects of it are, and you're going to have to, they're not going to be particularly technical themselves, you're going to have to be able to explain to them how your systems work, so those skills are going to come in real handy in a few weeks, if not earlier.
Maybe talk a little bit about how you've actually built your product, your business, and what languages or platforms each of you have used. We'll start with Lauren.
Okay, great. So we are just a web app, so we haven't gone into mobile yet. We'll venture into that later. And for the front, so it's using HTML, CSS, a basic web page languages. We also use AngularJS as a JavaScript framework, Python, and also Google App Engine.
I'm a mobile developer, so the product we made is on the iOS platform using Objective-C and the Xcode development platform. And there's certain advantages to being a mobile app in that sense that you can go around and show people what you've made and get their feedback really quick. But there's also some disadvantages in the sense that you can't show everyone. Your market is a bit more limited, so it's a trade-off.
Yeah, for us, we use Python and Django for the majority of our work, and more on the unique side, we use a lot of Elasticsearch, some different search technologies behind that. So Elasticsearch, and we use MySQL for most of our database.
Next question is for Christian. We've made some exciting changes to the selection process and application process this year that I think will appeal to a lot of the young entrepreneurs and the technical talent that's watching today. Could you go through a couple of the modifications to the application process?
Yeah, I think the biggest modification to the application process this year is once you've gone through the majority of the application and actually get invited to selection weekend. Your invitation is going to come in late October, and you'll then have a month to basically meet some of the other finalists for selection weekend, ideate with some ideas, and organically form teams. And so we're inviting the finalists to come to selection weekend with the teams and ideas already formed together, and then basically pitch to get into the next 36 as a team. So this will also allow individuals to apply to the program as a team to begin with. So if you've in your application, please indicate who you're applying with, and we'll make note of that.
Exactly. It's something that we're very excited about. If you do have an existing venture and all of the co-founders are eligible for the program and are accepted as finalists, you'll be able to self-select and form a team. And if your venture already has some traction, but you're able to follow the Next 36 shareholders agreement, then you'll be able to build a venture that you've already started working on inside the Next 36. So we're very excited about that. One of the other questions that
If I can jump in.
Yeah.
That to say, if you're an individual co-founder and you come to selection weekend as an individual, we've had a great track record of pairing people up as well. So don't want to discourage someone who is an individual from applying, because it's by all means that's been our bread and butter for a number of years now. We've been very good at doing that.
Exactly. And facilitating the introductions to the other finalists is something that we are committed to, both physically and virtually, so that you'll have ample opportunity to connect with all of the other finalists that are in that pool for selection weekend. Another question, I'll send this back to Christian because we get this asked quite regularly. If I want to build a technology venture that's not a mobile app or in software, will I be able to do so as part of the Next 36?
Well, I think Lauren's company, Boxit, is kind of a great example of that. I'm an entrepreneur. The program is run by entrepreneurs. We have a framework by which we indicate what we want, which is really a business that can have meaningful milestones within 9 months. So the reality is the bulk of those will fall into a tech space, because it's much easier to build a tech company or at least an early product within a 9-month cycle that can get traction, can get customers, which we've seen across the board here. It's much more difficult to do that in other verticals, but not impossible. So pitch me, and if I like the idea and I think you guys can do it, I'll root for you.
Perfect. And if you do have any questions, if every circumstance is unique, if you've got a unique situation and you want some clarification on any of that, please shoot a quick email to info@thenext36.ca, and we can ask some follow-up questions and dive into that a little deeper. The next question will be for our 3 entrepreneurs, now alumni, of the Next 36, and we'll start with Jeremy. All of you have had some pretty interesting internships and work experience, and some of the top students in this country are weighing programs like the Next 36 versus internships at Google or Facebook. What would you say to the student that's trying to decide between options like the Next 36 and some of those other employment options?
Both options are really good, but it really comes down to what you want to do in the near future. An internship at Google or Facebook is great, but you're essentially taking commands from someone else and listening to orders. And the experience is great, but it's almost like a laid out path for you. But if you take the Next 36, it's like we're invested in you as an individual, and you have the opportunity to build a business, like not just technically, but as well as business-wise, and lead a team of actual developers. So I think almost all of our ventures have employees, software developers, software interns, and it's the responsibility of the technical co-founder to manage them and to lead them into building a product, which is something I don't think Google or Facebook interns would be doing, within the first couple of years.
Chris?
Yeah, for me, one of the big realizations I had about entrepreneurship is it's all about efficiency. So I went into the program not really understanding, but I realized afterwards it's all about how can you use a certain amount of resources and what's the most effective way of producing the output you want. So depending on what you're looking for in your own personal growth and your own life, the Next 36 is what I would say is the most efficient way of getting your raw input to a better output. And I think that's great because the Next 36 has more pressure than I've ever had in any other experience in my life. It's very different than a work term or other sort of comparable programs that would be like incubators, that kind of thing. The program is extremely personal focused and is extremely learning focused. So the amount of pressure put on an individual is very extreme, and it also is extremely well-rounded. So I know a lot of focus is put on the ventures in a lot of these settings, but there's a lot of focus in the classes and in the mentorship and all that, which is extremely personal development focused. And I think the program is unique in that aspect. And I think that's where a lot of the growth has happened. And a lot of people in our cohort have experienced a lot of personal development in terms of how they work with people, what they want to do with their life, which you just don't get anywhere else.
Sure. I think as you're going through the application process, something that I really try to do when I was applying is to really think hard about if you actually want to apply to the Next 36. Because I think to maximize the program and to really put in 100%, you have to be committed to seriously thinking about entrepreneurship post-program. I think if you are having hesitations, think about if your goal is to develop and hone your skills, in which case Google or Facebook might be a great option, or if your goal is to take some risks, learn how to be more well-rounded, learn how to lead people, learn how to have an impact. And that's what the Next 36 will teach you to do.
Do you have anything to add? Yeah.
I'll answer that question. I mean, I guilty as charged. I went to work for EA for a number of years, and then for Lucas. In many ways, I would say going to Google and Facebook would be the least interesting option out there, because you're going to work on a small section of code with very little responsibility and a significant amount of oversight. Like from my perspective, would be the least interesting option post university. I think a slightly better one would be to go actually work for a startup. I think you're going to have a lot more breadth of knowledge developed, a lot more responsibility in a very short amount of time, and you'll grow as an individual, and your career path will be much brighter post. The best option, I think, is never working for anyone in your life except for yourself, and that's entrepreneurship. As Chris pointed out, the most efficient way of doing it is join a program like the Next 36. We'll make an entrepreneur out of you in a very short amount of time.
I'd like to shift gears and talk a little bit about mentorship, one of the other key differentiators for the program. And each of the ventures are paired initially, right off the bat in the program, with two very experienced mentors, some of Canada's top business leaders that kind of help you navigate the process as you build your business. Maybe we'll have Needle and Boxit, our top venture award winners, talk a little bit about who your mentors are and how they've helped you over the 9-month duration of the program. Chris, do you want to?
Yeah, so our mentors were fantastic. One of our mentors was Wayne Chang. He's a professor at the University of Waterloo, and he's an engineer, but he teaches entrepreneurship, which was really cool because it was kind of a very unique perspective for us. So for me personally, he had a lot of the background. He had worked in Silicon Valley. He did a lot of stuff with transistors and chips. And so I knew where he was coming from, but he had a lot of experience and a lot of passion in entrepreneurship. So that was a great kind of guiding force in terms of what someone from my background could achieve. Dean Hopkins, which was our other mentor, was kind of like a very fantastic story. He started a company, took it IPO, sold it off later, and he did extremely well. And he also had a technical background, which is really interesting for me because what he showed is that you could create a business without having gone to business school. So he never went to a business school, and he did it because he was passionate about it. He did it and he was very resourceful. So both of them inspired us. They pushed us really hard. But most of all, something that I think is difficult for a lot of people to realize is they really believed in us, which is one of the things that really took us to the next level. So they believed that we could do it, and that really pushed us to do better things than I think we were expecting to achieve out of the program.
So my two mentors were also fantastic. They were Sarah Prevet and Mark Reddick. So Sarah Prevet, she started Sprouter.com, which was then later acquired by Postmedia, and it was an online community of entrepreneurs around the world. And Sarah has been called one of the most connected entrepreneurs in North America, and that is true. Every time we name a startup, she usually says, "Oh, I know the founder. I can introduce you to that person." So she's been phenomenal just because she has such an energy for entrepreneurship, and she's really great at pitching, really great at really refining business models, and she regularly advises startups. That was super helpful. Mark Reddick, he was the guy that we knew we could call at any hour of the day. He just made himself very available to us. He worked as the CEO of many VC-backed startups, so he's been around the block for quite a number of decades, and one of his companies actually was sold to BlackBerry. Mark not only helped out our venture, he basically mentored half the teams in the Next 36 due to his background in financial services. So a lot of teams reached out to him. He never turned down an invitation for a chat for some advice, so he's been phenomenal as well.
Perfect. And a reminder to keep those questions coming in through Twitter. Again, the handle is @Next36, and use the hashtag N36Apply. Keep them coming. The next question was sent in ahead of time, and it has to do with the remote period or the national phase of the program, where the entrepreneurs in the program are scattered across the country building their ventures before they arrive for the kind of entrepreneurship boot camp that takes place from May until August here in Toronto. Maybe, Jeremy, you want to talk a little bit about what it was like during the remote period and what you were doing during that time?
Yeah, the remote period is for me one of the more difficult phase of the program because you're trying to build this venture with people you've essentially just met, and they're in different parts of the country. So and you guys trying to communicate, but it's really hard because different time zones and everything. But I think it's a really important thing to learn, especially starting off with the hard part. Because if you can stay together and stay as a team and stay motivated, miles away, think about how much easier it will be when you guys are here in person. So I think, once you get past the remote portion of the program, it's so much easier because everything becomes instantly, you guys, when you guys first meet in May, when you all arrive at Ennis College, everything just clicks, everything just becomes so much easier.
Christian, do you want to talk a little bit about what happens during that time as well?
Move fast, I think is the word I use, the words I use a lot. It's so critical, and I think all three can attest to this, that you take advantage fully of that time, because as soon as you arrive at Ennis in Toronto, the clock starts winding down towards venture day, and it's a very, very short amount of time. So the faster you can ideate, build your MVP, launch it, get customer feedback, pivot, and then pivot again, and maybe pivot a third time or fourth. We've seen a few pivots this year, but they're healthy, right? You're pivoting because you're making data-driven decisions. You're finding out that what you have is something that you're not solving a problem that you think you were solving, but there's a kernel of knowledge in there that indicates that there's something interesting that you should pursue, and you pursue it, and you rebuild it, and you restart. And I think every single one of these teams did that in some form or fashion. And successfully so. I mean, we have some great examples this year of what it takes to build a successful startup.
Perfect. The next question we'll send over to Lauren. You could ask it by saying, what does the typical day look like or a typical week looks like? But I think I know the answer is that every day is different. And, but maybe if that doesn't work, frame it in kind of how do you balance everything that you're doing, the classes with some of the top faculty from around the world, building your actual business, meeting with clients, meeting with potential investors. How do you manage all of that and stay sane?
Yeah, so one thing that we really try to do in our team is to have regular, very short bursts of meetings at the beginning and the end of each day to really plan out what are, for each person, what their biggest priority that day is, and as a team what we want to accomplish that week, and that's worked out quite well for us. So I'd say the answer to that is we found routine and just having scheduled planning time and reflection time on how our team is working, how our business is working, was very, very valuable. It was definitely difficult to juggle some of the classes because we had a lot of prep work readings to do for them, and as well as meetings we had to take from different people. And not only that, there's also the balance of meeting people in the cohort, because we were just surrounded by 35 other amazing people, and I think some people regret not spending the time with other people. Luckily, I did get the chance to have really great conversations with people, but I think that's something coming to the program, know that should also be something you need to prioritize.
I have a question about the application process and just basically the mechanics of it and how it works. And so there's two initial stages. The first stage, you'll be asked a series of short answer questions where you highlight your entrepreneurial track record and basically tell us why you feel you deserve a spot in the next 36. The second stage is done using Kira Talent, which is a venture from the 2012 cohort of the next 36. And it's an online interviewing platform where you'll be asked a series of pre-recorded questions. You'll have a set amount of time to think about your answer. Your webcam will turn on, and you'll have between 30 and 45 seconds to give a response that will be then submitted to the next 36. Exciting, intense, stressful, and new this year, there's also a technical challenge for anybody who indicates that they have some or advanced level of technical experience. Maybe Christian, you want to talk briefly about that technical challenge?
Yeah, I mean, I think the technical challenge is there because we're looking, it's just a piece of information as part of the totality of your application. We have a pretty good understanding of people who apply with design skills or business backgrounds. In other words, between the Kira interviews and the essays, we've been able to develop a pretty good understanding of what those type of, what you are as an individual. Where we've struggled in the past, frankly, is understanding people's technical abilities. And so this year, new for this year is a programming test, and it's just a piece of information for us to better understand who you are as an applicant. that's basically where we're in. That's basically it.
Perfect. Another differentiator for the program is that we bring in some of the top faculty, and you've heard a few of the entrepreneurs talk about learning in class from professors who teach at MIT and Harvard Business School. Do you have a favorite professor that you've heard from, and can you give a piece of advice that you learned from them, and maybe how you've applied it to your venture? And I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but maybe Lauren, if you want to take a shot at that one.
I know this is cliche, but I do have to say my favorite professor was Reza Satchu, who's one of the co-founders of the Next 36. So Reza is sort of infamous for his presence. Last night, some people were joking that he's almost like he has a very tough exterior, but he's almost like a teddy bear on the inside. So Reza really truly cares about each and every person in the program and truly tries to push them and challenge them in his class. So his classes are always very intimidating. I always walk into them, with my heart beating really fast because he calls people out. He really pushes people on their answer. He doesn't accept lazy answers. So that class has taught me so much about just how to really analyze a business because we had a lot of case studies that we used. It was just really refreshing to see his take on decision-making process, and he also brought in some phenomenal speakers to the class.
How about you, Jeremy?
Favorite speaker. For me, it was actually Professor Ajay Agrawal, who's one of the co-founders of Next 36, because he brought a very academic approach to startups, which is something you don't really see. You don't really think about, the numbers, the finances. But he explains it to a way that it's really easy to understand. And this information is so important to know. But no one ever takes the time to think about it. Everyone just kind of, put it in the back of their head. But he brings it out in a way that, it's obvious that, this is so important that if you miss this, your startup is probably not going to work out. And, every lesson he taught in class, I've applied it to my own venture.
Okay, and Chris, and you can't say...
I can't say either of those. So those are the two courses that kind of went over the entire year.
Yeah.
Something else that we did is there's often, like on Thursday and Friday for the full day, we'd have someone in from different universities around, and they tell us about different things. And actually, my favorite from those was Professor Stuart Thornhill. And so he was talking about entrepreneurship and creating a venture and like kind of the idea behind it. What's the point of it? How do people reach the point where they create a venture, and what goes into it? And that was really interesting to me specifically because we have a lot of courses on the finance side and on the international development side and how a business works. But this was the first time that I kind of thought about what the whole concept of getting into the business was about, and it was great thinking in terms of a wider perspective of where entrepreneurship and where this whole program fits into my life into a general sense.
Okay, it's time to send another question Christian's way.
All right.
One of the topics of conversation that came up a lot yesterday was, is the Next 36 an accelerator, an incubator? There are elements of both within the program, but it's really so much more. And so for a student that's looking at some of the other accelerator or accelerator-like options, what differentiates the Next 36?
Cool. It's a bit of a tough one because it's all of the above and none of the above. Mm-hmm. It's certainly not an accelerator in any real traditional sense because number one, we're a nonprofit and charity. Our output is not measured by the economic output of the accelerator. That's not our end goal. Our end goal is to increase Canadian prosperity by having more high-impact entrepreneurs creating multinationals and that are creating tens of thousands of jobs here in Canada. We have a very, very serious education component to it, which is coupled with the venture portion is critical. And we start, the ideas start really at the Next 36 from the ventures perspective, and it's one of the challenges that I give to the entrepreneurs very early on, which is a lot of them come with ideas they've had from their past, and unfortunately, many of them are what I would consider sort of small ideas. They're little pain points that they have in their lives that they want to solve. but net out to be $1 or $2 million businesses, which it seems like a big number for a lot of our entrepreneurs starting December 1st, and they come to me really excited, like I got a $2 million idea. And then I have to crush their spirits and explain to them that table stakes is it's a $100 million a year idea, and that just gets you in the door. So one of the challenges is really like let's solve big problems. So back to sort of, do you want to work at Google? It's no. Do you want to make the next Google? Because that's what we try to do here. That's certainly the aim. And if it's not an X36 company, it's certainly, I could envision one of the alumni from the program actually doing that here in Canada.
Terrific. All four of you get to answer the next question. What can a potential applicant do to strengthen their application? One piece of advice, and you can't repeat what the person before you said, so we'll start with Chris.
Okay, I get to go first. So the biggest thing for me going into the program was I thought I had to fit the mold. So a lot of people come and did business school, did more entrepreneurship stuff than I did. And so one of the big kind of things was I was trying to show how entrepreneurial I was by trying to come up with ideas on how I could pretend to be entrepreneurial. And one of the things that was really apparent right away was it's not really about being entrepreneurial, and it's about standing out. And a lot of the technical people have done things that are really unique and really interesting and show a lot of initiative, but they're not business. And I think the biggest thing is to highlight what makes you unique, what you've done that's different than most people, because I think that's extremely valuable.
If I had to give one advice is, especially as a technical person, it would be great if you have built something. I mean, it's great to have 95% in your CS classes or engineering classes, but we're looking for someone who's interested in building stuff, like creating some value to society. So before you apply, it would be great if you have done some history of building something just as a hobby or even as a business, because it shows great initiative and it shows you want to create something.
Mm-hmm. So I actually have two pieces of advice. So the first one, Chris kind of touched on this, but be authentic and really take the time to truly reflect on what you would want to get out of the program. Because in that process, first of all, you make sure that the program is right for you before you even apply. And second, when you do come to selection weekend, that passion will shine through, that clarity about your purpose will shine through during the interviews, and that will really help you out. And the second is to not discount your non-startup experiences. So I never started a company before, but I've worked for nonprofits, I've worked in student government, I've launched projects. So I've done things and I've ran a campus election campaign. So I've done things that involve me rallying other people, involve me building something up that didn't exist before, doing something different, doing something new, doing something that took courage and took persistence. So just really think through your experiences and see where those themes are, and to really draw those out and highlight those in your application. And don't belittle that experience, because that's valuable as well, and that shows that you have entrepreneurial aptitude.
Yes, and yes. These are all great pieces of advice. So I'll add two more. So in fact, I remember all three of the applications, and it's exactly right. I mean, they got in because they ran a campaign, they built something, they were authentic. Apply early. The earlier you apply and finish your first stage shows us that you're keen. And then break some rules in your life. I think one of the things that I've noticed across all of them is that they're not we're not looking at individuals who are have gone to class and got good grades, but then did nothing extracurricular, and then didn't try anything out, didn't try to push themselves in any way. So we're looking for coming from the entrepreneur, I'm looking for people who have broken rules in their lives, and push the boundaries. And so I think it's probably my last piece of advice.
Great, excellent advice. We've talked about a number of the different resources that an entrepreneur in the program gets access to. Some of the world's greatest faculty, over 250 Canadian business leaders that are your mentors and advisors. You also get access to up to $95,000 in capital to start your business. Not all at once, but maybe talk about how your venture has used the funding that you received through the program. Chris?
Yeah, so something that I didn't expect coming into the program was on the technical side. I would say almost all of our resources have been put into the technical side. So I've had the privilege and the excitement of being able to use those resources in the best way possible. And for us, most of it is gone, and this is something that's been very very new to me, but into hiring people. A lot of the teams do that and bring on interns, bring on people to work with them for the summer. And we had 2 fantastic interns. And that whole process was very unique, and obviously the funding allowed us to do that, and that really pushed our kind of project, our kind of team into an actual business. Because now we're managing people, we're building something that's bigger than ourselves, and that was kind of the next big step in what we could do, and that was really through the funding that we got through the Next 36.
I'll talk about the actual cash, but I want to talk about like the extra resources that Next 36 provides. So, Osler, a law firm here in Toronto, take care of all your legal needs. So if you're hiring an intern or a contractor, they do it free of out of the kindness of their hearts, like providing these legal documents for us, as well as actually incorporating your company for you, which is like at least 20,000. Also, Rackspace and Microsoft provides hosting and web services. I believe they provide up to like at least 10,000.
Even more.
Even more, way more than that. So like you're giving all these resources, not just in cash, but like technical resources to essentially build anything you want.
Exactly. So for our business, money was pretty straightforward in terms of how we spend it, because we needed boxes, we needed to rent zip cars, and we needed storage space. And we also, during the remote portion of the program, made it a point to meet up in person twice. So, and we had to use our money for some of the travel expenses, and that was really important in solidifying us as a team, and we spent days just whiteboarding and brainstorming through every aspect of our business.
Great.
Yeah, that's a good point. In fact, we encourage all the teams to meet up in person during the national portion, and so we provide seed funding for the ventures to do exactly that, and amongst other things.
Yeah, I'll also mention that most of the, almost all the ventures are continuing on post-summer, and if they have cash left, that money, they can carry on post-program to extend the amount of time they can support themselves for until they raise another round of funding.
Great. Did any of you talk to alumni of the Next 36 before applying, and what did you learn from them? Open question for.
All right. So I was friends with Jane Wu, one of the candidates from last year's cohort, and actually talking to her was quite fundamental because she convinced me I was good enough to apply. So I actually was very hesitant to apply because I didn't have a lot of what I thought were qualities and experiences that the program was looking for. And she sat me down. She said, "Lauren, I think you'd be great at it. I think you should apply." So I think that was a really a key event for me. And also, I don't know if you're going to talk about this later, but if you know of any alum, we do have recommendation codes to give out if we feel that you are the type of person that would fit the program. So definitely reach out to people.
Great. Anyone else?
There was this one alum that I met during the course of the program. So I was at a really low point during the program. Like there was so much pressure, like so much things to deal with. I was really close to dropping out. But one alumni from the first cohort, Dan McCann, he reached out to me. Like I didn't reach out to him. He like took the time to, sit down with me and say, Jeremy, I think you're just under a lot of pressure, which is normal. And he kind of convinced me to stay in the program. And it's like I'm so grateful for that because this experience has been life-changing, and I was so close to losing it. And thanks to this alumni from the first cohort that I was able to keep holding on to it.
I didn't have experience talking to alumni before getting into the program, which is something that I kind of regret. One of the things about it, so I come from Calgary, and last year was the first year that someone had come from Calgary, I think.
Yeah.
And so one of the things is a lot of the candidates come from kind of the Ontario region, and there's a lot of push to try to get people from all across the country. And so I know for me, I'm pretty sure Jeremy and Lauren would be happy to. We're all on the website, so if you want to reach out to us, I know we'd be happy to connect with you if you want to contact us one-on-one.
Terrific. So you've just completed the 9-month program, but your journey is just beginning, right? Looking back on the past 9 months, what has been the biggest challenge you faced in launching your venture? We'll go back to Chris.
I'll start.
Yeah.
So we've kind of talked a lot about the pressure that the program puts on, and my visual imagery of what that is it's like a piece of cheese, and then you have like a one of those kind of things that have lots of holes in it. I don't know what those are called. Strainer kind of things, and we're just pushing it down, and then you're leaking through all the different holes. And I feel like so
cheese?
we're the cheese. So you're going in all these different directions, and I feel like the biggest challenge for us was to focus on what we wanted to do. So there's the educational component, there's the businesses, but even inside the business, there's partnership ideas. There's a million different things that we're exposed to, which is the benefit of the program. But the challenge is always to see all of the opportunities and don't close off to them, but pick what you want to do, and focus and devote enough energy to make whatever you do worthwhile. So that was the biggest struggle for us as a team, was there was a lot of things going on and figuring out what we were going to do.
For me, it was definitely team dynamics, because you essentially have three really strong individuals, each with their own opinions and their own interests. And to be able to come together and all decide on one idea that all three of them love is really hard. So in my experience, we made compromises where one person loves the idea, but the two others are kind of iffy about it, which comes and hunts you on later in the past. So definitely make sure everyone's on the same page. Make sure this is a venture you can see going with the two co-founders, and a business idea that you can go beyond just the end of the program, because ultimately you want to work on something that you can call your own business that you can work on for 5 years. So one of the challenges was we didn't have that. We compromised. So but now I think after the program we all realize if you're going to work on something you love with people you can see yourself with.
Yeah, that's a great one. For me, I think a big challenge was to not view the program as a race. So it could be very easy to get into the competitive mindset just because we all started at the same point with nothing, and there's scarce not scarce resources, but funding is allocated based on performance metrics, so not everyone gets funded at the same speed and with the same amount of money. So it can be very easy to get into competitive mindset, and for us, for most of the program, we felt like we were behind, and we were quite distracted and quite frustrated by that. And in fact, we were continuing on a venture that we knew deep down we didn't like. We knew wouldn't go places, but we were scared to do anything about it because we didn't want to fall behind on the race. And it wasn't until we sort of made the bold decision 2 months ago to just completely scratch everything we'd done and start from scratch again, to start Box It, that we could really focus on our business, focus on just doing the best that we can and putting 110% for the last 2 months of the program, and that was the best decision we made during the whole course of the program. And we were so tempted not to make it because we didn't want to fall behind. So I remember talking, and back to the alumni question, talking to a venture that came out of the first cohort. They were called Winston, and now they're called Fleetbit. And they provide a mobile application, white labeled for taxi companies, to allow customers to request for taxis and pay for taxis on their phones. So when we were chatting with them, they told us that they actually switched ideas mid-July. So that was a month before the program was ending. When we first heard it, we thought they were nuts. Why would you throw away everything you've worked on a month before the program ends? And just you'd be behind everybody. And what Ada Nolman from Fleetbit told us was, well, we really saw it as, what do we want to be doing 3 years from now? Not where do we want to be a month from now, because that's short term, but we want to be building a business that we'd be excited about for years to come. And we really took that to heart and realized that this wasn't a race. We weren't competing against the other ventures. We were really competing against the market. So that was a paradigm shift, and I'm really glad that we came to that point of realization.
Perfect. Christian, you've seen all kinds of challenges. I don't know if you have anything to add that you've seen frequently with some of the other ventures as well.
Yeah, a litany that I probably can't go into. We don't have time. But no, I think that there is definitely this perception, that incorrect perception, that it's a race and that we compare the ventures against each other. And one of the things I'd like to sort of explain, does anyone out there compare Google to Exxon? no, not really. I mean, these are two ventures and two businesses in completely different spaces with completely different business models. So, how can I compare needle to box it? They're two completely different businesses in two completely different spaces. I suppose if we had two ventures that were in direct competition with each other, we might compare them, but unlikely, because I think we're very much focused on the individuals, as we've actually talked about a lot already today, and then on the ventures themselves as sort of individual entities. So, and then on pivoting, what I try to tell these guys is there's a whole list of companies that have launched because of a hackathon weekend. So where you build, within 48 hours of coding, and you come up with an MVP that tests for a problem solution set and looks for product market fit, and if you hit on something, then you build it from there. And if you do that mid-July, go for it. If you do that early August, go for it. So it's all about never continue on with the business if the data that you have shows that it's not going to succeed, because you're just wasting your time, you're wasting your money, you're wasting all the resources, and there's quite a few of them. We talked about Osor. Mars is another phenomenal national partner that gives us resources. EY, TD. So there's a huge list of resources out there, and the last thing you want to be doing is working on something wasting everyone's resources on something that deep in your heart is not worth pursuing. So pivot, change. You'll have full support of the program and the full support of your fellow entrepreneurs.
Perfect. I'm going to take care of a couple of event housekeeping items and then come back to our four experts for one final piece of advice, so you can start thinking about what your final piece of advice would be. But we're being asked a little bit about the Next 36 Hackathon, which is taking place on September 13th and 14th. It will be hosted by Google in both Toronto and Waterloo. We're super excited to be able to announce that. And we've just announced that the theme is wearable computing or gesture-based hardware, and the theme is basically to build software for these hardware devices. We're working not only with Google, but also with Thalmic Labs. Alumni of the Next 36, Stephen Lake is one of the co-founders of Thalmic, and Scott Greenberg, who's also an alumni of the Next 36, is working at Thalmic as well. And they're the creator of the Mayo, which is some of the coolest technology I think that's out there right now. An armband, gesture-controlled armband that allows you to control all kinds of neat stuff by reading the impulses in your muscles. We're hoping, if Scott and Stephen are watching, that we'll be able to have the Mayo as one of the devices that participants will be able to hack on. But it's a space where there are a lot of other options right now also. So we encourage you, if you're interested in hacking at this type of an event, to apply immediately. Space is super limited at Google, and we don't want to get to a point where you're on a waiting list. Eligibility is for any university undergraduate student or student who has graduated within the last 6 months, and all the information and the Eventbrite registration is on the Next 36 website, which is www.thenext36.ca, and there'll be plenty of pizza and Red Bull at the event, we promise. The judges will be engineers from Google, some of Thalmic's development team, and a number of other technical co-founders of startups in the Canadian startup community. So we're very excited and hope to meet you in person there. The other events that will be taking place across Canada is the Next 36 Campus Tour. All of the dates and universities and locations are on our website, and it'll be a great opportunity for you to meet not only Next 36 staff, but alumni who have gone through the program and can talk about their experience and answer your questions firsthand before that October 7th deadline. So for more information on that, check out the website, and again, feel free to tweet at us or email info@thenext36.ca. Final piece of advice for anyone who's thinking about applying. You've got one thing to either a piece of advice to share or something that you got from the Next 36 that you'd like to highlight, and we'll go starting with Chris.
Okay, so one of the big things that I wish I would have known going into the program was that the program, while it's extremely business focused, really does rely on technical people. And so I know it's easy for me to undervalue the technical aspect that I bring to the table, and I think it's extremely important to realize that the business people, the designers, they're all there, and they're a big part of the business, but at a core, these are technology businesses. They need someone that can make it happen. And so expressing on how you can make the technology happen is extremely important for a business and extremely important for Next 36. So just explain that you can make technology work?
Yeah, mine is just in a similar vein. Like, when you hear about the Next 36, you're thinking entrepreneurship, business. So you're probably thinking this is a great, program for business people. But I'd argue it's even better for technical people because, business people come to this program, they get taught, finances, and they know a lot of this stuff. But for us, we never took classes with accounting, finances, entrepreneurship. So we benefit so much more through this experience. So I guess my advice is to do it because you stand to gain way more than those guys from Ivy and Queen's Commerce because all this content is brand new to you and it's being taught by some of the world's best professors.
Mm-hmm. I think my piece of advice is to just don't oversell your technical skills if you're not as technically capable as other applicants. I think there's a misperception that you have to sell yourself as the ultimate hacker, coder, designer in order to get into the program. But the truth is the two criteria is intellectual horsepower, entrepreneurial aptitude, and your technical ability is just useful for the program in thinking about the teams and ensuring that teams have what it takes to really bring a technology to market. So don't be afraid if you're a beginner coder, you're an intermediate coder, still apply and still just try to prove through your application why you're intelligent, why you're curious to learn, why you want to be here.
Perfect.
I'll disagree with Chris ever so slightly. There's three individuals or three characteristics that every single successful startup will need. A developer, as Chris did point out, a hustler, and a domain expert. And in theory, somebody could have all three of those characteristics, but generally what we find is that you get one characteristic per person. So you need one of those for each team. So development abilities is definitely one of the core ones, but it's not the sole thing we're looking for. On the entrepreneurial side, I would say this is a technical webinar, we're talking tech, build something, right? Not a school project, not something that you had to because it's in part of your class program. Build an app, build a web app, build a mobile app, iOS. Just show us you actually have enough drive to actually build something and put it out there. And who cares if it gets 5 downloads? And those 5 are the 4 devices that you tested on. But put yourself out there, right? Put your tech out there. Put yourself out there. I think we notice that, and then think big. Think really, really big.
Terrific. Well, I want to thank Chris, Jeremy, Lauren, and Christian for sharing their wisdom with us today, and I want to thank everybody who's watching live and on the pre-recorded or on the recorded version of the webinar. We look forward to receiving your application, answering any questions that you might have, and hopefully meeting you in late November at National Selection Weekend. So thank you, and we will talk to you soon.